So I am Sherry Naudine. I'm the owner of Collegiate Sports Advocate, and we're over 10 years. We're going to hit 11 years this July. And it came about because I recognize that every student athlete has their own individual path to college. And, not everybody gets to play anymore either. I'm not going to say that out there. But understanding what it takes to get there and packaging up these families and these student athletes to understand where their talent level is valuable. And then, just like a previous call I had to tonight, just talking about what types of things they're going to face along the journey and going it alone and how difficult it is with social media and emailing and what do I do? And the NCAA changes a rule. All of these things have been like true stories for 10 years. So right now we've committed 564 student athletes nationwide. We do mostly softball. I will always tell you that we're number one in softball in the country because I don't know anybody that does what we do to the depth of success that we have. And then I also have baseball. And last night on my social media training, my baseball guys showed up. They were dominating on my softball girls. I'm like, that's right. Baseball guys need so much help because so many of them play the game and play it at a great level. And that will lead into your topic here. But I just wanted to make sure everybody knows how to contact me. And then a little house cleaning. You all can talk tonight because neither one of us are restricted Division I athletes. So if you want to come up and speak, you just hit the request to speak on the bottom. Both Coach Chad and I are way chatty, so it's going to be an open conversation. And you can also show us some emojis as we're talking if there's things that you want to clap or give us a heart or anything like that. So little house cleaning, but Chad, Coach Chad, I want to know all about you. I know you're from Chile, but let's go. Tell me all about you.
All right. Thank you so much, Sherry. It's great to be here. Yes, my name is Chad Masipo. I go by Coach Chad on Twitter, and in all my places I coach down here. I am currently in Chile, and I am a international baseball coach. So what that means is that I've coached in the República Dominicana, Panama, Colombia, and now Chile. I love the game of baseball. I have a long history playing the game. I did not play professionally. I played in independent leagues and then also in the military. I'm a 5-year Marine. And so afterwards, I decided to continue to play as much as I could until my body gave out and my arm also gave out. So long story short is I got into coaching and I really understood that I really want to impact the game through coaching, through helping others, through making sure and grow the game where I was at the time. I love to travel. And so long story short is that I ended up in Chile when I was covering in 2019 the Caribbean World Series. I was doing some bird dog scouting. I have been hired to scout certain tournaments and games over the years with my limited baseball Spanish, but I believe I have a pretty good eye for talent. So I went to the Caribbean World Series and ended up meeting my wife at the Panama Canal while watching the boats go through before the final game where Panama beat the Dominican Republic. So that's how I ended up in Chile. And it was fortuitous, really, Sherry, for the simple fact that Chile does not have a baseball history, not a very big baseball history at all. So me coming down here and getting a blank slate and finding people who enjoyed baseball and starting a little league here. Now, let me tell you, starting a little league from scratch that is sanctioned by Little League USA is quite an experience. And to get these kids playing a game that they love and growing from 200 kids in 2019, 2020 to now 500 kids and sending them to tournaments all across Latin America, Guatemala, Nicaragua, República Dominicana, Panama, Belize, has been an incredible experience. And I just love growing the game down here. So that is a little bit about me. I do have because of my travels, and I see so many athletes, like probably the athletes that are in this room now, and the athletes that I come across daily that are looking for another team, that are looking for another opportunity. I developed a platform called Team Finder, and you'll see it in my bio. And so what that does is it seamlessly connects people that need their next opportunity, rather it be professional or domestically looking for your local league. I think that I see so much talent out there that just wants to play. So I figured I would put a platform out there that can do just that. So that's my
I
little
love it.
bio right now, Sherry.
And
And
it's
it
so
was,
funny
mm-hmm,
when I was texting you previous to the game and we were up on Messenger, another message had come in, and you know how you're finishing typing, but you're typing on the wrong person. And it's a gal that is on a Tuesday night Twitter that Jackie and I both know. And she was asking, how would a person ever find a team, that's outside of their area? Because these big kids really do find bigger teams, and yet you
mm-hmm,
tend to know them or learn them along the way. At least on the girls' side, they're very identifiable by tournaments and sanctioning bodies and things like that. And so I said, join in, come sign in. Now I don't see her here, but I thought that was an interesting topic because you're trying to help them find teams, and then hopefully hooking them up with coaches and opportunities to get recruited and things like that.
absolutely. There's so
And
much talent out there, Sherry, that does not get looked
yes,
at. That they just need access. They need exposure, access, and someone to be an advocate for them, right? As you know, and so that
100%.
that is what I think that we are both aligned with 100%.
Yeah, and it's funny because my husband, not by his choice, but just switched organizations, and he'd been coaching here in the Dallas Fort Worth area for 16 years, and just come home with the big national trophy, and got told his services were no longer needed, and so he switched
Mm.
brands, and not only has grown more teams, but we're touching girls here in our own metro that we didn't even see before. And he's like, there is a
Ah,
lot of talent out here who
yes,
have
there
never
is.
even had a chance to have good coaching, and it's just given him this new inspiration, to do more. And then I forgot if I mentioned before, my daughter played Team Mexico.
Wow. No, you
Yeah,
did
so
not mention that.
I
Right on.
know when you started saying that, I'm like, oh my gosh. And we're actually hosting the Team Mexico tryouts here in Dallas. I think it's in April. We were just talking about it on my call before that. And so they're even doing a feeder league, youngers, 15s and below, I think, to get them that exposure to play on the international thing. And that was one of the most enriching experiences. My daughter found her inner Latina self because I'm not
Mm.
Latino, and
Mm-hmm.
she was singing the songs and wearing the ponchos, and we're like, oh my god, what happened to this kid? She found her inner, and her name is Shannon Luce, so we've always called her Luce. But she really just found her culture and found her people, and it was just such a enriching experience. Now we had trouble with all of the passports and all the paperwork and stuff like that, but that's
Yes, that's
typical.
always a challenge, but that
Yeah.
is awesome. The international game is there is nothing like it. You have to experience it. It is incredible, the passion, the love of the game, and I think you said your daughter's name is the Luz. That's the
Yep.
light in Spanish, of
Right,
course.
right.
So
Yep.
she is the light. So that is fantastic. Yeah. So it's the international game is something else, and that's great. I didn't know that about your daughter. It's very
Yep,
fantastic.
and
Yep.
and the gal that's coaching for my husband's 18 and under team is actually the pro coach for the new pro league that started in Mexico, which is the first of its type in softball. So we may have to keep coming south
Fantastic.
into South America. They were
Absolutely.
the international play. We also represent a girl that's on Team Puerto Rico, and
Hmm.
she was just in Panama and in not Chile, Colombia. So they were just
Yes.
down there this last 2 weeks. So it was very, very exciting. And then we have three Team Mexico student athletes that we represent at CSA. So, but
Fantastic.
let's talk about the topic that you and I got
Yes.
excited about. Tell me how that came about for you.
Well, it came about, right. We had a space where you came in very thankfully, and it was that you came in and spoke what you spoke about, and now we're talking here about this proliferation of injuries that we're seeing, not only at the pro level, but what we're seeing at the youth level as well, and how this came about, what we can do about it, and what methods can we, what methods can we identify that maybe that we're not doing so well as coaches, as advocates, and how can we change this for a lot of kids that are really seeing their careers cut short very early. And that's why I wanted to host a space. I had Tommy on there. You spoke to him pretty extensively, who is was a he's a professor up in St. John's, but he's a coach in the Cape Cod League for a lot of years, and he has seen this happen. Me and him have known each other for many years, and we're watching everyone, chase velocity, chase spin rate, and in the fear of missing out, right, and the fear of not getting scouted if you don't hit a certain velocity. And I've been really cautious, watching this happen day to day, and thinking, this is not sustainable. This cannot, you cannot throw as hard as you can every outing and feel like you are going to last in this game. And so, that's how this conversation came up, because the game is losing some great talent because of this training methods. I believe that we are pushing this max velo and max spin rate. Now, I understand that to get looked at and to get seen, you have to stick out. But are we doing it correctly? And that's why I wanted to speak to you about this, like talking about when is too much. And maybe
Right.
we can get some, softball players who are in this room to speak to this as well, because I believe that, that we are asking too much of the athletes. Year-round training, max velo every bullpen, every pitch, max velocity, because we're measuring every velocity, right? Like, I measure velocity the right fielder's throw to third base. I measure the catcher down to second base. And if we're measuring someone all the time, of course they're going to try to give it their best. But, what is that doing to the youth athlete? What is that doing to the pros? And that's why we spoke about that. And that's why we are talking about it here today.
Yeah, and what I bipped in about was, like, this is just now becoming a big issue in softball, and my husband has always been this vision guy, and he said, we're 5 to 10 years behind what softball or what baseball's doing, and so now softball's getting very much into the analytics. Like literally every tournament we went to last year, you pay extra, they'd give you analytics, but what are you doing with it, right? Are you just going to
Mm-hmm.
run to see how fast you are? Well, we already knew you're fast. I did a TikTok on this. Like, I got one of the fastest girls in the country, but can she play softball at your level, right? There's
Right.
just so much more to the analytics than just that. But you're right, they're going out and blowing out velocity. But I had some good stories. The Rapsodo tends to be a machine a lot of the girl programs use. And I had a young lady that had joined me fairly late. Like, I like eighth and ninth graders. And this
Mm-hmm.
young lady was last fall, and she's a 2025, and she wasn't committed. And yet she's on a team with a bunch of girls that I had gotten committed. And she finally went and there's a pitching style called Powerhouse Mechanics. It's pretty popular. And she started using their trainers, and she just all of a sudden picked up velocity and spin. And when her numbers came out, I don't know how to read the numbers. I called one of my D1 coach buddies. That's a great pitching coach. I said, "Hey, what do you think of this?" He goes, "Oh my God, Sherry, she's got a 1% spin rate." And I'm like, "What's that mean?" He goes, "Like top 1% in the country." And I'm like, "Okay." And
Mm-hmm.
but you wouldn't have noticed that unless you saw her play. And then because she started working this different pitching technique, her velocity increased at the same time. Well, sadly for girls, their recruiting happens in this very compartmentalized time frame. So she blossomed after everybody had been seen for a year or 2 years, right? And she didn't have somebody like me keeping her name alive. And I see one of my clients on here, and she's a dynamic pitcher. And by the way, any of you can request to speak. Taylor, if you want to come up and add to my story here, or if it's your parents, you're welcome to. Any of you guys can add to this. But, Taylor had an injury during her recruiting. She's a 2026, and yet she's still fine because, one, she's on a great team that's going to the right places and doing the right things. But she's also got good pitching skills. And, she's a kid. She's got a lot of spin. You watch her play, she gets them out. It's not so much she's blowing them down, throwing 70 miles an hour, but she's got velocity and spin, but she's getting them out. And now they're starting to discover, and again, Higgums, I'm not trying to speak for you, but they're starting to discover a better fit. Not so much the biggest, best school in the country, but a combination of a good quality school and a good quality education. So the females tend to their big nut at the end of the game is a great education. So but what we were talking about was the overuse, and
Hmm.
I worry about that too. But yet the pressure I get is, oh, they want to play multiple sports, and I'm like, but you're playing multiple sports that you get injured in. You're playing basketball and volleyball and things that cause different injuries. I would rather see them running track, so they're getting faster and doing, weightlifting, or the lifting programs that they do to get stronger and faster. I'd rather see the athletes doing that and protecting their body and building with a professional, not the high school coaches that throw them in the gym and then walk around and spit sunflower seeds all day. And then they get injured. Oh my gosh, you have no idea how many times I hear injuries coming from high school because they're just not as, detailed to specifically what that student athlete needs. So I'm sure I gave
Right.
you some thoughts there. So
Oh, most definitely. Yes. I mean, there's a few that come up. I mean, just kind of going off your last thought there, the high school coach has been, so devalued now, because of not only that, the coaching tree has kind of sprung toward the money, right? So we're looking at
mhm,
travel ball. We're looking at going to academies. And that's an extra expense to the athlete and the athlete's parents. And therefore, the high school coach, is someone that maybe cannot get you to the next level, but can, keep you where you're at. And a lot of people aren't looking for that right now,
mhm, mhm.
unfortunately. And so, yes, so the high school coach, in general, I'm not going to say every high school coach.
Yeah,
'Cause I've
I
run into some
agree.
really good high
Yep.
school
And
coaches,
same
most
with travel
definitely.
coaches. There's some good ones
Yes,
and there's some bad ones too.
absolutely, just like in anything in life, and
Yeah.
and I found it very interesting. You mentioned, about the women's softball. Really look for education. I'm watching that firsthand. I have a niece that's 17, going into, this is her senior year. She got a scholarship to Embry Riddle, through a showcase up in Northern California. And one of the reasons that she went there is because of the education that is offered. And I think that's a huge thing when it comes to, the future, when it comes to what selection you're going to make, because I speak to athletes all the time about, their decisions. Do they go D1? There's a lot of, like, a lot of social pressure about D1, D2,
Hmm.
D3, NAIA. And I know in baseball, those are all great. There's so much talent in every division, but I always tell them that you have to go where you fit. You have
Right.
to go where you feel and where you're going to play. That
Well,
is
and I'll add
extremely
the word I
important.
use is where you're valued.
Correct. Yes.
Right? Because if
Yes.
you're
It's a
not
great
valued
word.
and you're just a tool or a pawn on their board, which really you are. I mean, if you want to take the emotion out of it, they've got to create a team. They got to have all the tools and all the pieces, and they need you. But do they value you? Do they treat you with respect? And do they have a plan for you? And is it honest? The communication that I get, because of course I'm staying with them till college, so I get, oh well, my coach said this and that, and that's not really what's happening. Well, what are you doing, and how are you influencing it? How are you, helping change what it is that you want? And are you delivering what they bought? Like, there's a disconnect because these girls will get committed their junior or senior year and then not play hard. They don't go grind and get ready for college. They kind of chill. Mom and dad don't have to spend the money traveling all over the country. We're going to stay home and play local. Then they show up and they're not the product that that coach purchased 2 years ago. And then
Mm.
there's this huge pressure and stress on it. Ooh, now you got to get in shape. What happened to that 2-7 home to first? That's not looking very good right now. And then
Oh, it's a
it's
wake up call when you get to college.
hmm
No doubt
well,
about it.
my youngest one played soccer in college, and I witnessed the beep test. If any of you want to see how much shape you need to be in college, go Google the beep test. You might throw up watching it. It's so insane and intense, and they're doing the yards on the football field, and they're going back, and they have to meet the beep, and it's insane. And I don't know a soccer kid that passes it up front, and then they got
Hmm.
to grind it, but that's how fast you have to be. And so to go back to the when is too much, these same with soccer, these girls had to run enough to meet those expectations to be that level when they get in the game. And so the pressure that I heard you guys talking about was the pressure to do more, picking up and playing every weekend, and we don't see a lot of pickup at the elite level in softball, but talk more about that for baseball.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pressure is immense. I think the panel here can speak to it as well. We see it. You see it in your world, and I see it in mine. I see that the pressure to, I go back to, speaking with my niece and her commitment earlier this year to Emery Riddle. Before that, she had to go all these showcases and all these it's November, December. Let's go back to that time frame. And I'm asking her, I said, her name is Drew. And I said, Drew, I said, I said, I'd really love you to rest for a little bit. You sound tired. And I know that she goes, Uncle Chad, you don't understand. And I said, well, tell me, please tell me what's going on. She goes, I have these tryouts coming in January. Okay, for my travel ball team. I have January for my high school team, and my Emery Riddle coach wants me to play in the showcase against other recruits before she committed. And so this is what I see going on. And this is when I ask is when is too much too much? I don't want her to fall out of love with the game because
Right,
she's so talented and she loves the game so much, but she plays year round
right.
and maybe gets a month off, if that. And I worry about her and the baseball athletes that I speak to that play year round. I worry about their long term health. I
Right.
worry about their long term, not only physical health but mental health.
Well,
And
and I
I
think
think that is an important fact here.
yeah, and I think I shared on the other podcast with you guys that finally our college coaches changed a rule to give time off at Thanksgiving and Christmas. Because even myself,
Hmm.
I mean, I had a parent light me up on Christmas, and I said, with all due respect, I'm celebrating with my family today. And she's like, well, I'm off work and it's really important. I was like, whoa. So,
Mm.
I really set the tone this year that, hey, we all are taking a break. I don't care what division, because, one guy got snarky on social media and said, well, that's only for Division One. Everybody else needs to work. And I'm like, it's okay. But they do get stuck into having to do what they need to do to get recruited. And especially hearing the timelines for your niece, she was at the tail end of it. And so, she probably had to do a little bit more than she should have. And that's again why I start the evaluation when they're eighth grade and ninth grade, so that they get a little bit of an understanding what lane they're in, so that they're not chasing what's left over, if that
Right.
makes
Yep.
sense. Yeah.
No, sure. But sometimes, as eighth and ninth grade, a lot of people are not developed yet, right?
Okay.
And so
And
and so
very
we
much so for the boys, like night and
absolutely.
day. Hmm.
And so, I'll be looking at like a 2026 or 2027, and I will keep notes on him, but I wait for the physical maturity, right? I
Right.
wait for I say, okay, I can see that this person has has a window. I can see this person has a future, but it's not here right now, but I'm going to keep tabs. But at the same time, it's really hard because if you say you want them early, eighth and ninth grade is really tough for someone who develops late.
Right.
And that's why, I started my platform, but that's also why I keep tabs on people even after they lose their window, because what I'm seeing is that people are getting more opportunities now. If they're not, even if they're not into these, I don't want to say baked in windows, but windows that are needed for the NCAA. Okay.
Right.
That are understood. They are understood, and I understand why they're there. But there's so many athletes that fall out of those, Sherry, that they just haven't physically developed into that time frame, right?
Right.
And so that's where I kind of specialize in. That I look for these gems, these kids that don't, aren't the the ones that everyone is looking at. What I'm looking at are people down the road that haven't blossomed yet, or maybe that haven't had the exposure yet. That's
Right.
where my wheelhouse seems to be. Hmm.
And I will say mine is similar. So I'm taking eighth and ninth graders, but the females tend to mature physically a little bit better or a little sooner, and but
Hmm.
not all of them, right? And so I start to look at characteristics that are sellable long term. Like, are they a good kid from a good family doing good things? Do they have good grades? Do they have that grind? Are they getting up and working? Are they doing the right types of training? And, like we talked about with basketball and volleyball and all of these multiple sports, is that a productive thing to be doing if you're maybe a little bit behind? And could you maybe be training with a football coach so that you get your first step explosion faster. And so I try to re-guide them in that way, but the overlifting or the overthrowing, where we see the injuries in softball, is for the pitchers. The
Yes.
softball pitchers get thrown because there's only one of them in high school. And so they get thrown in Texas. I'm in Texas, to this listening audience. From January until June, they're pitching and they're the only pitcher and they've got 2 games and then they've got tournaments. It's too much. And yet they say it's the travel ball. Well, I don't really think the travel ball, when you break down the amount of time, is much time, but it's more intense because
Right.
your
And I think,
batters are harder. Yeah.
yeah, definitely. You're playing against better competition. So, you, as a competitor, right, you ramp up your own competition. And so what happens is that every weekend you're going out and playing the best of the best, and you're expecting the best of your best from yourself. And you're 16 years old. Okay. This, this isn't, this is a problem when it comes to a development of an athlete in my experience. Can you hear me?
Yes, and
Okay,
what
great.
what
Okay.
I did is
No, no
one
problem.
of
I
our
just want to
one of
make
our
sure.
audience has asked to speak.
Absolutely.
So
Most
Jennifer, I've
definitely.
given her speaking opportunities, and as long as
Yeah,
everything's fun and fair and kind to our student athletes, we will always let you come up and speak. So yeah.
absolutely. Yes. And so, I mean, what, just to finish my thought is that, what we're asking of a 16, 17, 18-year old is becoming, in my estimation, a little too much.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
and how does it, and I look at it from an athlete's point of view as like, are they going to say no to wanting to play, to having to play more games when a coach is saying, or a advocate, or a recruiter or a scout is saying, hey, I want to see you play in this tournament, I want to see you play against this competition? No, they're not going to say no.
Right.
Okay. So, and a competitor in me would not say no. But the point is that, when is too much too much? And
Right.
what I'm seeing on my side, and I don't mean my side, I watch softball games, I go to softball games, but I'm more in tune with the baseball game. And what I'm seeing is that these kids are chasing so much the I need a spot on a D2 team. I need a spot on a D1 team.
Right.
I need to hit this velo by this time, and they are maxing out their arm and maxing out their bodies every time they pick up a ball, Sherry. And I
Yes.
just don't see how that's sustainable.
I agree. And so, Jennifer, if you want to come up and chat with us, go ahead and come off mute and would love to hear your thoughts.
I I currently do not have one playing baseball or softball, but my oldest son used to be a pitcher. And he was a very good pitcher. He could have went to college on being a pitcher, but he chose to go to college for basketball because he felt like his arm, even back then, he's now 28 and in the Air Force. So it's been a while. But I know, but even back then, when he was playing, he felt like his decision was, Mom, pictures, my arm's already starting to hurt. I'm already starting to have issues, and I feel like I don't want to ruin my body and myself, so I'm going the opposite direction because pitching put too much stress on his body. I grew up playing softball. I used to play all the all-star teams. I was a really good first baseman, and so all my kids are athletes um, because I did, and I just love the sport. Unfortunately, my daughter, she doesn't want anything to do with sports. Out of all the kids, the only one that could have played softball for me. But she's not. Yeah, that's not where her talent lies, and I don't have a problem with that. But I do agree with you guys about the pressure on kids nowadays is insane because I do still have two children in high school, but different sports, volleyball and football. And the links that people want them to go along with, like, oh well, you need to get a rec team if you want to get recognized, you need to do this, you need to do that. It's just a lie, especially for a family our size. We can't do rec, we can't afford rec, we can't afford to travel, that kind of thing. And so it just can be really rough when you've got kids that have talent, but a lot of, I feel like sometimes it's really hard to know how to get them recognized if they're not doing it at those higher levels. And maybe you could, I know this is a baseball and softball discussion, but how
Yeah.
do you do that? How do
Well,
you make that possible?
you hit the right place because I actually do. I have done volleyball, and my youngest daughter was a collegiate soccer player, and I've done football and baseball. My model works for all of them. But what I'll do is set up a free call with you and walk through exactly where their talent is and if you've got any video or anything. Because I would never take your student athlete on and then say, oh, I can't help them. Their talent level isn't college bound. And then their age and stuff like that will matter too. So.
Okay, I understand that. Like my senior right now, he got an offer from Graceland University, NIA, I
Mhm.
think, for volleyball, and
That's
he's a senior,
awesome.
so he's gonna be leaving. But
Yeah,
my freshman is that, okay.
yeah. No, and that
I
is
love all my.
fabulous. Yeah, for your senior to have that.
Yeah, and and I wasn't really involved in that. And like my oldest, he went to Nova on the basketball scholarship. But again, I had already left for Florida. He was a different state. Long story, anyway. So I've never really been involved in that. And now my 15-year-old, he's actually more talented than the brother that got recruited to the NIA.
Well, there you have it. The
And
baby's always the best, says the baby in my family.
you know, I swear I have an athletic gene. I'm not just trying to toot my own
Yeah,
horn, but I was really good at all the sports I played, and I have some children who are freaking amazing, and coaches love them, and they're like, I had one that was a football star, a basketball star, a baseball star, like, and now I've got a volleyball one that's got into the
right.
lower level, and the youngest is, you know,
Well,
kind
I
of in
would
that area
love to
too.
chat with you on your youngest one and give you some insights and give you free advice, really. I don't take your
Yeah,
money
because
and don't
I
help you
would
without that.
I would appreciate that totally,
Yeah.
because he came to
Well,
me the other day. Volleyball's his love. He
oh,
wants to aim for
yeah.
this, like California, Hawaii, somewhere in there to play. And I'm like,
All right.
I'm like,
Well, do you know how to message me here on Twitter?
yes, I do.
Message me. And if you didn't hear at the start, I'm going in for a surgery tomorrow on my arm, so I'll be out a
Oh
couple days,
no.
but I will get back with you and we'll set up a time to talk. We had another young lady request to speak, so we'd
Okay.
love to hear what Ainsley has to say.
Hi, I just had a quick question. As you said, pressure on the kids is getting more intense. But with all the pressure, do you have any good tips on how to maintain a good mindset?
Yes, I teach a time management training called 168 hours in a week. And I will just give you some free tips here. If you can set up a calendaring system and have a check in and be very compartmentalized, like literally planning for the things you need to do, what you're going to find is you have more time than you think you have. However, organizing the time and prioritizing it and being able to say no to some of the things. I am shocked because one of the components in my time management training, I asked the student athletes to send me a screenshot of their phone usage. And what happens is you all have a lot of phone time that Coach Chad and I don't have in our generation, and you'll be shocked how much of that can be put aside and organized and prioritized. And then the actual activities, I think you have to then decide which ones are going to help you. You know, if you're playing multiple sports or they're making you do things at school, find what actually adds value long term. And just like with Jennifer, I'm happy to specifically talk to you about that too. So, Chad, what are your thoughts on Ainsley's question?
Sure. Ainsley, that's a great question, man. Nice to speak to you. Coach Chad Masipo here. And when it comes to mentally, I think that, learning to say no is a big deal, not only in sports when it comes to now being able to, in your development, but it's great in life as well. My life changed for the better when I had to set boundaries. when I had to learn to say no to things. You're at it sounds like you're at an athletic level where you get a lot of people wanting your time, and a lot of coaches wanting your time, maybe an instructor, maybe other players, this sort of thing. And you have to figure out like what is important to you. What is important? What are your goals? And I don't mean like long-term goals, because some people get overwhelmed with thinking, what am I going to be doing in 5 years? What are your short-term goals? What are your 6 months to a year? What do I want to accomplish? And is this activity or is this person going to help me accomplish that? And so that's where I would start to kind of answer your question about being able to kind of compartmentalize with your time, with your school, with your loved ones, with your relationships, with everything that encompasses is this part of my goal? Is this part of my short-term goal? And those things change, as in your when you're in your teen years, in your 19s, 20s, 21s, before that in high school. But I would definitely focus on that and learn to say no to things. And you'll be surprised on how many things how much time you have for the things that you really like to do. That's what I would mention.
What about schooling as far as like my youngest, my 15-year-old, he's an IB student also with like a 3.9, 4.0 GPA on an IB scale right now. That puts a lot of pressure on him beyond the athletics of football and volleyball. So what is your thoughts and feelings upon that and how to relate that in with your sports?
Well, I'm a big believer that the academics is primary. It's the number one reason, especially if they're college bound athletes. One, they have to be able to get into those colleges, they have to exist in the classroom. But long term, that's going to be what's the best for them for 40 years, right? That's what's going to take them farther than
I agree.
Major League Baseball and all that. But there's a lot to learn about the academic side too. So I can't wait for our conversation. And back to Ainsley, there's something else I do with my student athletes, and not all of them participate. It's a pet peeve of mine, but I do 30 days of yoga with them in December. And it's just simple stretching. And when you get to college, they're doing it. So I'm teaching you ahead of time, but I'm also teaching you a time to sit on a mat and just breathe and just take time out of things. Coach, what do you think?
Oh, Sherry, I really wish I would have taken up yoga so many years ago. I tell you, it is such a mind cleanser. And not only that, I'm much more flexible than when I was an athlete. And so when it comes to yoga, I would definitely, I know to the younger generation, maybe they're more open to it now. Like I said,
They
I wish I
actually
was.
not. I'm telling you,
Oh,
they're
okay.
so adverse to it. They're like, "Ooh, yoga."
Yeah,
They
I
think
think it has a
something's
stigma.
weird about it. Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you, it has done wonders for not only my mental health, but for my physical well-being as well. So, I mean, it just, and I only do it in 5 to 10 minute stretches. Like you can do
Right.
10 minutes of grounding or just, being alone with your thoughts is incredible, especially in our world. It's so fast paced now. We're inundated with information 24/7 on our phones, on the television, but from our parents, from our friends. And
Yeah,
so,
I call it an adult timeout. I just throw myself on my
yes,
mat in my
there you
office and
go.
just take my adult timeout. And you'll die laughing, but I'm sitting in a yoga chair because I like to sit. I stack my
Yes.
legs and stretch my hips. And I know there's several pictures here on this call. Um, for you guys, 100%, you've got to do the hip stretches, because what I was
Oh,
telling
yeah.
Coach Chad and Tommy, the amount of hip injuries that are happening for these young pitchers, because you really have to utilize your whole body. You really need to embrace just the simple stretching techniques and not call it yoga. I always say, I'm not a red dot yoga person where we're going to have incense. It's just a 30-day program we follow on a young lady that does it on YouTube, and it's free. But it's just so important to incorporate that into your life. So even when I'm getting dressed, I'm doing little yoga stretches, because you've got to keep everything healthy and getting energy into your body.
Yeah, you got to move.
Yeah.
Got to stretch those muscles out. And so I'm interested in knowing, Sherry, that with the panel we have here, and the young ladies on here, when it comes to softball injuries, I see in baseball, I see the UCLs, I see the arm injuries everywhere, forearm strains, UCL injuries, biceps, shoulders with a lot of baseball players. So tell me more about this softball injuries, and what is, I know you spoke about the hips earlier, but what are some things, why do you think that is more prevalent now than it was in the past?
Well, I think it's that overuse thing, right? They're feeling like they have to throw harder. So now they're allowing a leaping rule. Like international softball pitching has always allowed the leap. And that is really, I mean, they are thrusting their bodies off the mound, and it's a big lower body. I love it. It's amazing. It's really going to change the velocity for the pitchers, but I think sometimes they're jumping into it too soon, too early. And there's one injury I can think of in our area, and a young lady, it was just an amazing athlete. She walks by, you just go, whoa, this girl is a beast. But there was no other pitcher for the high school. So she thought, oh, what the heck? I'm a great athlete. I'll just go learn to pitch. Well, that's a lot of pressure. And one of our speakers had just put a message in here that she faced an opponent that threw 169 pitches before they took her out. And
Jeez,
and I
this
used to
is
not count pitch innings because, of course, I'm old school and she's a bat buster from SoCal and I'm from SoCal. My youngest or my middle one pitched in a 10 and under rec ball tournament, and she pitched 5 games back to back. And I said, I
that's
literally
not
said, Mia,
correct.
Mia, are you sore? She goes, my legs are sore, but that's it. But the mechanics, because that's what we were talking about, the mechanics are very natural. The arm rotation is very natural, and the hip movement, as long as you're not carrying a heavy foot. And, they pick up these bad habits that then cause the injuries as they go. I think it was just a gift because she was so young that she didn't have any bad mechanics that, put her into a rut. But she also
Hmm.
didn't pitch past age 11. She just didn't love it. She didn't like the pressure of being
Right, right.
responsible.
Yeah,
And
after you
Taylor, I
throw,
don't know if you can message me or not, but I don't remember what injury you had, if you want to share, or if any of you guys had an injury so far along the way. Um, Taylor's one of my clients. But
yeah,
I know she
that,
was out last fall, and I don't remember the specifics of the injury. If you feel like sharing, that's fine. You can message me or other. She is. I'm getting a message. Or Ainsley said, "Thank you so much." She has some big goals. Thank you, Ainsley, and look forward to chatting with you again too. So, um,
absolutely. Nice question
let's.
too, Angie. That's a
Yeah,
very
that was a
important
great one.
question,
Let me see
and
if
so
my
it's
text
great
here yet.
to be able to answer that. I mean, when it comes, I'm watching kids down here now. Understand that I'm in South America, and there's a very big immigrant community down here that plays baseball. The Venezuelans, a lot of Venezuelans down here
Hmm.
that love baseball. It's the number one sport in Venezuela, right? But And so baseball is kind of a way forward for them. Okay. So the parents are very fanatical about their son or daughter's use. And what I am seeing is that they want their son or daughter used all the time,
Hmm.
every time. And it is, it is becoming almost like a prerequisite for kids to continue to play even during the winter months, even when you can see that they are breaking down 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. And I wonder if this culture that is being put together about, paying to play in travel, and the coaches, worried a little bit more about money than they would be when they're paid, a little bit more about winning than they would be about the child's health. And so as a parent, I would
Interesting.
really look at the kid, really look at the coach and
Hmm.
watch the team, how they play, and see if that's where I want my son or daughter to play. Because if you are a good athlete, you have a lot of choices. Okay. And if
Yeah,
you're in that community, you have a lot of choices on where to go. I think the days of, oh my gosh, I hope that this team takes me. I think those days are now I'm not in the US.
uh-huh.
I only hear things, but I do talk to a lot of athletes, and I think those days are coming. They have more choices now, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that your health comes first, because if you're not healthy, you don't play, period.
Correct.
And that is detrimental to anything that you want to do in the future. So it's okay to say no. to certain
Yes.
things. That's what I want to
Well,
get across, I
and
guess.
I'm in a hotbed of both softball and baseball here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I mean, it is king, and there's tons of clubs, but I think you're right. There's plenty of choices now. It's not just one team or bust, or when we moved here in '07, there was only 5 travel teams. Now I can go to a 14 and under tournament just in softball, and there'll be 150 teams of young ladies out there playing the game. Now, obviously, the numbers don't match that they're all going to college, so there's layers amongst layers amongst layers. And I'll give some name dropping here for our softball girls, but I had the Romeros and the Knightons and the Cruzes when they were 9. I could tell at that age that they were so elite as athletes. And then, of course, the Romero dad, who just unfortunately recently passed away, he was a Mexican international player. And he was just phenomenal with their coaching and development. And little Sid, who's the assistant at Oregon now, she came to our team when she was 7. And my husband ran up to me and said, "Put her on the team. She's the best one out here on the 10 and under team," right? And I said, "Dude, she's toothless with ponytails. I can't do it." And her mom actually said, "We don't want to rush the process. We want her to love the game. We know she's good. We want her to have fun." And then when her sister got Player of the Year for NCAA, I actually cried because her mom wrote the nicest thing. And the first person she mentioned was me as her 10 and under coach, because
Oh,
we went to nationals and we were really good. We didn't win, but we also loved the game and went and did our hair together and ate at restaurants that we'd never eaten at in California. And just you got to do those things with them even as they're older. And
sure.
I even saw a TikTok. I'm going to go to another comment here, but I saw a TikTok yesterday about a college soccer coach saying coaching the boys is different than the girls. And so the girls need a lot more bonding and connecting and communicating and learning to like each other. And I mean, my daughter complained about stinky socks on the bus. I told her, then get off the bus if you don't like it. But it's what you got to deal with,
But
right?
that's the good stuff right there. That's the good
Right.
stuff, That's the camaraderie. That's the growth. That's the, hanging out like you're talking about the restaurants. That's the stuff you remember. I remember things on my baseball teams, just the little things. I don't remember all the tournaments we went to. I don't remember how many games we won or lost. I remember we won a championship, but I remember also losing a championship. But I remember mostly the guys. I remember the camaraderie. I remember how people made me feel. I remember where we went. And I remember the stinky socks on the bus. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Exactly. Ainsley, I saw you come off mute. Did you have a question?
Yes, I have a Zoom call that I have to hop on, but I was just going to say thank you for answering my question.
Oh, you're welcome. And you have a unique situation. I looked at your bio. You're in Iowa. I've helped several kids in Iowa. They have a unique situation where they play high school ball all the way into summer, where they only have 2 weeks at the end of summer to participate in recruiting. And then they're in Iowa, which is cold and don't have a lot of outdoor games come fall, when they have the 12 weekend or the 6 weekends in 12 days in October and November. So I'm very good friends with a couple of your travel ball coaches up there. So I understand your situation. And my daughter is the South Dakota State assistant coach. So if you get a chance
Yes.
to go see them, go see them. So thank you, Ainsley. Your
Yes,
contributions were
thank you
awesome.
guys.
All right.
Thanks, Andrew.
Anybody
Yep,
else
thank
want to
you.
come up and give any comments? I know, Jaden, you were messaging me on several topics here. I don't know if you want to come live, but you were saying a few days ago in high school, the other pitcher, she threw 169, and then today's game, a pitcher went off crying because her arm was throbbing. She's
Oh,
17.
I
I mean,
hate to hear that.
it just
It just
tells
tears
me.
me up. It
It,
tears me up, Sherry. It just,
yep.
oh
I've
man,
got one in
man.
Northern California, same thing. She's not a pitcher, but she's the best kid on the team. And she said to the coach, her arm was hurting and her hip was hurting. And the coach literally said, "I just think you're not willing to push through it for the team."
Oh,
And so
that's a
she said,
terrible
"Well,
coach.
then my options are that I'm going to quit." And I couldn't deny it. I'm not a fan of quitting, but man, if you can't, you got to have that relationship with the kids. And if they are faking, so what? Develop somebody else, you
Well, and
know?
that's what we were talking about with the coaching. I don't want to, I the coaching down here, what I've seen is hit and miss, to say the
Mhm.
least. And I think that there's been such a huge explosion because of so many talented athletes that the coaching cannot keep up, right, with all these teams. I mean, you're talking about 100-team tournament. How many good coaches are in a 100-team tournament?
Right.
I mean, 20%, maybe. really good coaches. Okay. So, when you're talking about that, I'm thinking that, hey, you know, when it comes to your own well-being and your own health, a lot of these athletes now I see have to be their own advocate, and it's a really hard situation. It's a really hard situation, but you have to learn to say no, especially if your arm is hurting and you're in your recruiting window.
Right.
That next game isn't as important as you think it is, in my
Right.
experience.
It's a short-term thought for a long-term effect. So, well, Coach Chad, this has been so wonderful. I hate to start to wrap it down, but I want to just remind everybody to share this space, because one thing you'll see if you go to our collegiatesportsadvocate.com page, I keep all of these Twitter lives up there. We've hosted some of the most famous coaches in the sport, different topics, different information to give to you, but we like to bring this to you. I don't know what I'm going to do Monday. I might take this coming Monday off, so I apologize to my regular listening audience. But when you share it, a lot more people get this information. I want you to reach out to Coach Chad. He's got a lot of information and a lot of knowledge. And then he's got this team finder thing, and especially our baseball guys. I'm going to share it on our baseball site and to
Well,
my,
thank you. Yes, we
yeah,
are
we have
helping people get connected to different countries, to different opportunities. It's really changing lives, one kid at a time. And we're picking up basketball here pretty soon, and it's just a nice, easy, low-cost way to connect. That's
awesome.
it.
And I'm
That's
going to
it.
tag you when we throw out the next Team Mexico flyer. We just talked
Oh,
about it
yes.
before this call because,
Excellent.
we want to get it out there. It will be in Dallas. So there's a lot of Hispanic culture here in Dallas. So in Texas in general. So as my husband reminds us, it was Mexico first.
Yeah, that's very true. So is
That's
California.
that's right. There's
Yes.
your history
Uh-huh.
lesson, people.
Most
So
definitely.
thank you, listening audience. Share our space. I will put out as soon as I'm feeling better and through this surgery to when I can get another speaker. But if you've got a topic you want me to cover, let me know and I'll work on it on my phone while I'm getting my surgery.
Sherry, a healthy and very, very fast recovery for you. And I can't believe you're getting Tommy John surgery at
At
this
my
stage.
age, at
And
my
so
age, you can
that
say
that
it,
is
Chad. It's
that
not going to be offensive.
that is a show in itself. That is a show in itself.
I keep saying
Okay,
I'm going to
so
do a TikTok, but I think I'm too embarrassed.
no, no, you should do it. You should do it. I think there'd be plenty of
Awesome.
people to be
I
very interested to see. So, good luck on your surgery, and thank you for having me. This has been fantastic, and thank you for everyone that chimed in and listened, and not only that, contributed. This has been excellent. I appreciate it, Sherry.
Fabulous. Jennifer, did you have
real
anything yet?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say I followed you, but I can't message you because I'm not paying Twitter the $8
Oh, well,
to be
I think if
notified.
I follow you back, it'll happen. If not, go to my website. It's
uh,
collegiatesportsadvocate.com. It's free. And then put
okay,
connect with us and I will connect with you.
okay. Well, you have a great and successful
Thank
surgery,
you.
and I look forward to speaking to you. And actually, my son is excited too. He would love to speak with you
Awesome. Have
also.
a good night, everybody.
So,
Chat soon. Thank
good.
you, Coach Chad.
My pleasure. Thank you for
Okay.
having me. All
Hasta
right, take
luego.
care.
See?
Hasta luego.
Okay. Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.